later. So I've got Brian White from Futuraza, and I've got Hans Nelson from Hansi Nelson. We all have our own YouTube channels. Thank you, everybody. Um, yeah, let's get started. So what we're going to talk about today is full self-driving. First of all, there was a release this morning about that full self-driving version 12.3.4 is now available for employees. This is just employees still, but it's still much, much faster than we've been expecting. So I wanted to ask the question to the group here, what are we expecting for this release? What are we expecting for the next release? What is going to happen after the next week or two? What is considered to be feature complete for full self-driving? And then let's walk us through what happens in the next several months as we head to 8.8. And then, of course, what's happening in 8.8 itself? What do we expect to happen there? So let's get started with you guys. Brian, why don't you start off with what do you think is you're going to expect for 12.3.4?
So 12.3.4, I think, is going to be a small improvement. I think we're going to see a little better lane centering, so it's not hugging the curbs quite as much. I hope there'll be a little bit better sign recognition. And if I'm being really optimistic, I'm hoping for smart summon, features like that to start showing up. Maybe even reverse. This it's probably a little early for that. But if your cameras are clean, the cameras do you can look at your screen and see what you see. Your car can see really, really well, better than I can out the back for sure. So I don't think reverse is a crazy thing, especially if you're in the car. If you're in your parking spot, nose in, and it's time to head to your destination, pop it in. Let's just engage it now. I don't think that's too crazy of an ask, but I don't know if we'll see it on 12.3.4. Hans, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, since we're not too, if I remember correctly, Elon mentioned that it was going to be like 12.4 and 12.5 where we get some of those new extra functions like smart summon, like banish, and being able to operate in the parking lots well, and all of those things. And the other so that, that leaves a more limited number of things for them to fix, but there are all kinds of little bugs that we have right now. And so like a 3.4 release seems like a great place to start doing some of that. And one of the things that we have noticed and heard on X and on YouTube is that a number of people keep getting curb rash or bent rims or destroyed tires because FSD is not driving as carefully around things as they might, and maybe a little bit faster, through some corners around curbs than they would. And so that's definitely something that really needs to be addressed quickly. Hopefully that gets solved here. But then there's lots of other little just minor things that it can continue to improve on. And so I would definitely expect all of those things to happen. The other thing that we should be seeing in the not too distant future is a full, we still are using like a version 11, and it seems like it's an improvement on version 11, but the highway stack is still somewhat different than the surface street stack. And so I expect that we will see an integration of those two things again. I could definitely be wrong, but that would be something also to look out for.
Yeah. So later, we're going to review this table from Edge Case, and we're going to go through each of his different testing features that he's outlined here. And he shows you that 12.3, this is what he ranks it between 0 to 10, and how it's compared to the previous versions. We'll walk this through and see which ones of these features or capabilities we think is going to appear. But before we get there, right? So Elon has said that the next few versions, we're going to get a version coming out that's going to do reverse, and we're going to have a version coming out that's going to do smart summon and even banish, which is like sending the car go find its own parking spot. He had said that he thinks that it'd be late April, March, April, or May when it'll be polished. So you guys explain what you think is coming out with 0.4. You guys both thought it was going to be these minor little things. When do you guys expect to see reverse, and when do you guys expect to see smart summon?
Well, the easy answer is well before 8.8, because that's the big day. But honestly, reverse, I would say I expect it within the next update or two. And smart summon, I don't know. I've been waiting since October for that. My October 2023 Fremont build has never had any kind of summon. So I'll just wait and be pleasantly surprised when it finally happens. And for Banish, I think that's going to be the very last thing they add because there's a lot of risk when you're just not in the car and it's getting closer to cars instead of farther from them. So I'm not sure on any of that, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement with just the start. I'm still seeing people complaining about the speed being too low or too high. I haven't had that experience. I have seen it be unduly cautious near parks, which I think is reasonable. I don't think that's a crazy thing for it to do. I was in the car and my kids thought, oh no, phantom braking. But what they didn't see because they weren't looking out the front window was the Honda Insight in front of us had started drifting into the lane. And I could see why even a human driver would not want to be there when that car does it. That's the right move. So I think in terms of timeline, I'd say some of those features in the next couple weeks and hopefully all of them prior to 8.8.
What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, I would actually be surprised if we don't get the reverse sometimes in the next month. And then, so we'll say end of May on that. And then probably smart summon by the end of June. I think that those are realistic and potentially even faster. I do agree that the banish functionality could be one of those things that takes a surprisingly long amount of time. The type of thing that you might see them do a demo on right before 8.8, but then be like, yeah, we're really not ready for out to everybody kind of a thing. But it does need to be in a relatively good shape for the whatever the Robotaxi reveal looks like on August 8th. So, I mean, that's what I would expect, and we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
I mean, the thing about this smart summon and banish is that we have seen cars already be able to find parking spots as they go into a parking lot, and we've seen. I'm just about to show a video here of being they're showing high fidelity now, right? Especially those cars who don't have the ultrasonic. There's vision only. It's able to do this. So
Before you show
they've been
that,
working on this for a long time.
I would say that I've seen those videos with Scott Walter where the car appears to find its own parking spot, and I've tried to replicate that. But when I put in the supermarket as a destination, it just brings me to the front door and stops. We're here. We're here. You do it. So then, of course, I take over and it says, you disengaged. What happened? I said, and I leave a note. We have arrived. I don't know what to tell you except that we are here. So I'm waiting for that to happen. I have finally gotten the opportunity to use the parking assist at all. And I tell you, I was driving and I was looking for a parking spot and I happened to look down at my screen and see that it was highlighting parking spots with a big P on it. And I was like, you've got to be joking. And I've used it 6-7 times now and it just works every time. Smooth, competent. It would pass the parallel parking test for driver's ed. It's a really fun feature to have. Not so much for me. I am capable of parking, but I know a lot of people who just don't parallel park because they haven't had enough experience in cities where they're comfortable doing so. So yeah.
Let's watch this. This is the the vision only, right? And I mean, it's going really slow, of course, because it's they purposely have it going very, very slow, right? And then I think what they're trying to show you here is look at the how the cars that they're shaped. It's very, very high fidelity. They've got it nailed how far away the cars are, and the curb. You can see how strong the curb is as well. That's what they're trying to do. That even without the ultrasonics, you can actually see. And I've seen other versions of this where you can actually see incredible vision. So,
And I would say I don't want it going any faster. I think the speed at which it's parking is perfectly reasonable for any time I've ever needed it.
What do you think, Hans? Let me see if I can find the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great demonstration. The question is, can it do that, reliably and repeatedly? Because one of the things about Banish is that if you just send the car to go do that and you walk away and go into the store or whatever, and then it has a problem, that's a problem. And so it needs to, obviously they've got to have some system in place to say, hey, your car couldn't find parking or it's having issues or something happened, please return to the parking lot and attend. Um, but they need to have most of those issues really solved before they release this to customers, so that that's not something that's happening very often. This needs to, have a good high quality user experience right out of the box. And so the fact that it can do that well in some instances is not proof positive that this is ready for customers.
Okay, for sure. So, so do we all agree then that the three things we're expecting is reverse, summon, and banish? Are those the things? Is there anything else that you would consider to be feature complete?
I mean, apart from just working, I'd say no. I think those are I mean, that's a big one, though. Just working is a big one. One thing I've found from talking with quite a few people who had similarly lackluster experiences on version 11, who are now having much, much better experience with version 12, is I've been told by more than one person that a lot of the reason they disengage isn't because it did something wrong, it's because it doesn't drive like me. And they just felt a little uncomfortable and they wanted to have it drive differently. So that has nothing to do with feature completion. That's just a comfort thing.
So let's take a look at this other parking here, and then we'll just, oh, sorry, this is the one I just showed, isn't it? Oh, crap. I'm showing the same one. Sorry. Keep going. I'll find the one I thought I had.
By the way, this is, to me, this is what the videos should be. This is the way to show it. You've got your top-down drone shot overlaid in the same ratio. This is great. AI drivers videos also are very, very good in terms of the visualizations. If you want to see what the human sees versus what the machine sees, you can't do much better than AI drivers. Chuck Cook does very well too. Those are two very strong follows in my opinion. Okay. And yeah.
I got it now. So this one here. So I think we've seen this a few times, right? But just incredible visualization of all the parking spots. It has the ability, look, there's even a car there. It knows how to, sneak in between that car that's stopped there. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it. A little tight there, but it went forward, and then it knew that it was too tight. Okay? I mean, if it could do that, right, it can do what we need. So these three things, is that it?
For feature complete, I'd say so.
Yeah. Okay, so let me share this again, and we guys see what you guys think about this. So this is Edge Case, and he's been putting this together for a while now, and this is his way to explain. Hold on here, guys. Let me make it larger. All the different features that he's been comparing it. So you can see that he's got comfort, common safety critical, less frequent safety critical, and then he's got follow the law, and he's got robotaxi specific. So things like, obviously emergency vehicles. Can it pull over for emergency vehicles? Is that not considered to be feature complete? If you don't have that, how could you say that you're feature complete, right?
I would agree completely. That is critical. I've had that happen yesterday, day before yesterday maybe, where I was near the hospital. The sirens were wailing. The ambulance was coming. Everyone was pulling over. And my car thought, wow, look at everyone getting out of my way. This parade is not for you, dog. You need to get out of the way. That's critical.
Actually, anything that's a 1, you might consider. So you got reverse as a 1. You got proper behavior flashing red lights. We've been hearing that it's now solved. Do you guys know? Has that been solved or not yet solved?
Not for me. Yeah, just yesterday. I was coming home and it came to a flashing red light, and I just let it sit. We probably sat there for 3 minutes before I finally
You
tapped
got
the accelerator.
3.3.3? You got point
Yes.
3?
Yep, I've got the 12.3.3, and it just sat. It just parked, and no one was behind me. So I said, "Let's ride this out. Let's see how long we get to stay here." And so we started looking for apartments to move in because this is where we live now. So it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty bad. And at that very same intersection, it's done fine before. So I don't know what the difference was, but in this particular case, it just was not in the mood.
Okay. And then what about hand signaling? I'm about to show another video, but there's people who are now saying that. So I think Hans, you and I did this, didn't we? Where if the pedestrian is standing there and then they decide to step backwards, the car recognizes that. And some people are saying whether or not they do this or not, it doesn't recognize it. But then let me share this. This came out, and this person shared this new video to show that it actually can recognize hand signals. Let me just do that quickly. Boom. Oh, crap. I keep putting the wrong one in. Sorry, guys. Keep putting the wrong one in. Where is it?
Because recognizing hand signals from a police officer or someone directing traffic is absolutely critical if the car is not going to
might be a little bit
follow
more
that.
important. So if you see this continued deterioration, and that's what it is,
So this traffic card now.
down, I believe, the SMH. I thought for a while the SMH.
Now, is it because he walked out of the way, or was it because he was doing the hand signal?
I'm going to guess it's because he walked out of the way. Chris from Dirty Tesla made a lengthy video yesterday or the day before, where he tested extensively with him driving and his wife being the pedestrian. And they both had their phones so they could communicate, and they were trying all different kinds of things. Step out with a hand signal, step out without a hand signal, just stand there and wave me through. And they couldn't find any appreciable difference any appreciable difference between the hand gestures and the no hand gestures. So I don't believe that is solved on 12.3.3, but
Okay.
we'll see.
So hand signal navigation, that needs to happen. You've got special road signs. I'm not sure if that needs to happen to be feature complete. Pullover for emergency vehicle, clearly that needs to be solved. Proper behavior, flashing red lights is another red too. You got to be able to do reverse. You got parking is there, and then you got avoid potholes. I'm not sure that that's feature complete. Avoid coasting in blind spots. Yeah, avoid coasting in blind spots.
Yes.
I don't know what that is, really, to tell you the truth.
Do you not know what he means? The vehicle loves to sit in other people's blind spots. And it's not that it loves to, it's that it doesn't consider that a dangerous behavior. And I consider that a dangerous behavior. That's defensive driving 101. I don't know if everyone's driving school taught that, but mine certainly did. Good job, Sears. Whatever happened to you? But they,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't, I would say, but I don't think that holds it back
That's
from
not
being feature complete.
Yeah.
No.
So really, it's going to be parking, reverse, which are the two that we talked about, flashing red lights, and
emergency
hand signals.
hand signals.
What's this one? Oh yeah, the
road signs.
emergency
road
vehicles
signs.
and hand signal, right?
Yep.
Do we all agree?
I'm fine with that list.
Yep.
Okay. So when do we think all of those will be solved?
Oh, I'll let Hans take this one.
I think that there's a good shot that we get at least massive improvements. I don't know that I would say solved, but we could move from 1 year on this score up into the 5, 6 plus by the end of the summer on a lot of those things.
I'd say maybe even sooner. I'd say we'll be moving into the 2, 3, 4s within a month or two. And I just really expect that by 8.8 we'll have a whole lot of progress, because we're seeing these versions come out awfully quickly. I'm seeing notable improvements in each version, and And the fact that they're not compute constrained makes it possible.
Yeah. So the thing about the neural net, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, Hans, but that it's not that they have, if they see an edge case like this, they could train it. They can go and feed it videos of that specific thing. I'm going to send you a lot of how proper, great drivers, defensive drivers deal with all the different ways of emergency vehicles. They can pull those vehicles, they can teach it. But, and also some of these things, it will just learn on its own, right? It'll just, because you keep feeding all these videos, eventually it'll just figure out what to do. Is that correct? Do you think so? And then the next question I'm going to ask after you answer that one is, what is going to be required for Robotaxi? Which of these features need to be absolutely all done by them?
Yeah, so I would say that you are correct on your assessment of how the end-to-end works. And the fact that Elon has said that they're no longer compute constrained means that everything upstream of the training run is basically full it's at least not a bottleneck. It's possible that it's all fully automated and has no humans involved in any way, which really implies that they may be to the point where they're doing end-to-end training. And end-to-end training is different than end-to-end inference. So end-to-end inference is the fact that, yeah, we have 100% neural nets in the car, and end-to-end training means that you actually have your compute cluster operating 100% neural nets as well. And so it's just videos, neural nets in the training cluster, and then it's spitting out, a specialized neural net that is what gets installed on your inference. And usually when you make that leap all the way to the end-to-end training, that's when you get this parabolic move vertical in the progress of your overall system. And based on how fast we've seen things moving recently, I think that if we're not all the way to end-to-end training, we're at least close to it. And I think that's why things are moving so quickly right now. And that does mean that, yeah, they can just like they they have an automated, fast way to utilize the entire fleet to do the search necessary to find the edge cases that improve performance in the next run. And they're doing these runs and they're taking, basically a week or at maximum 2 weeks, since it seems like that's the cadence that we're getting these new systems. And then they're going through, some QC process after that where they get tested by the employee vehicles, probably in some inner circle ways, and then it kind of moves out to a general employee test group. And it seems like, as soon as it moves to that general employee test group, it almost immediately thereafter goes out to customers as well. And so they're finding very few or they're finding very few bugs that they don't know about in the QC process, and they're just cranking out these new versions. And all of that really is just incredibly encouraging, from an outside perspective that this this pace of progress is not slowing down. And that's where I think that, like I said, we're at least close to end-to-end training if we're not there yet. And if that's the case, I mean, I tend to be more conservative. A lot of the things that I've said today are in the direction that, we'll see how far we get. We're going to make progress between now and August 8th, but we don't know how much progress we're going to make. And I'm not, expecting all these features to be quickly added. But, that's just the conservative side of me. When this stuff goes completely parabolic and vertical and exponential, you start getting those things just one after the other, and at a level of quality and speed that we've never experienced before in FSD. And so, there is a 10 to 20% chance that we go through that phase sometime between now and August 8th. And not only
Oh,
do we get everything that we've talked about today, but more.
you've said it a few times, and I think there's an assumption that it has to be done before August 8th. It doesn't have to be done before August 8th. August 8th is just a presentation day saying we're going to launch a robotaxi sometime in the future. Am I
I
wrong?
have I have theories on that, which I will gladly share when we get to that point, because that's coming up here in a few minutes, I assume. I will say that I think the question of which of these things need to be addressed in order to reach Robotaxi, the answer is all of them. They can all be sevens, but all of them. If it doesn't recognize hand signals, we can't do it. If it's not going to stop for emergency vehicles, you've got to have a person. Yeah, if it's going to park at a flashing red light, that's a problem. I don't understand why
Okay.
there's no microphones to hear emergency vehicles or horns or something. But
Well, okay. Well, let's pause for a second. Just step back a little bit. Sorry,
that's okay.
because what I want to ask is this list was created by EdgeCase, and he does a fantastic job of tracking this. But it's his own list. He created this list. Do we actually think this is the actual list that a car needs to do, or is there some other way to measure it? Could it just be edge cases? And some people are going, it's got to solve all these different edge cases before it's going to be safer than a human, right? I think that's the ultimate measure of the progress of FSD, whether it's a good robotaxi or not. It has to be 10 times safer than a human, is what they said on Master Plan Part 2. And are
Well,
we going to
Yep.
assume that these features are the ones that it needs to do in order to be safer than a human? Because something's like, follow the law. Well, is that unless that law is actually safer than a human, right? Like a good example that he said was speed limit does not actually mean that you're safer than a human. It's actually how fast you go around a corner. That's safer than, because that's what causes more accidents than that, right?
and there are places where going too slow will cause an accident too. And I would say that the speed limit I'm less worried about when there's no one in it, because who are you going to ticket? The car? I'm not aware of laws that allow
Yes.
that to happen. Well, no, there's no, a speeding infraction is assigned to a person, not a vehicle. So great. But I would say that these are all critical issues. And it sounds like what we're doing is drawing a distinction between supervised FSD and unsupervised. Because if it's unsupervised, if there's no one in the car, you have to be able to handle edge cases.
I would say that yes, there is another way to determine, what the things that you have to have and don't have to have are. I don't personally know what the full list is, but it's whatever Waymo does. Whatever Waymo does
What?
is what you have to do in order to operate a robotaxi
What?
in a commercial. As far like, can Waymo respond to emergency vehicles? Can Waymo like it has to have all those capabilities. Obviously, FSD is going to be better, but I think that, those are gonna be the minimum set of functions that are necessary.
I
Not the
had the
sensors,
person,
but
yeah,
the
send me a note.
capabilities.
They sent me a note this morning talking about Waymo, and that Waymo gets phone call. Like they actually have communication with a teleoperation person that's there that can come in and take control of the car. Um, we, I don't know. I guess my reaction was yours the same because Waymo already
That's a
exists.
robotaxi business that exists today. If it can do everything that Waymo can do, then it can be
Well,
a
how
robotaxi
does
business.
Waymo do all these things we just said?
We
Can
didn't say
Waymo's
how, we
car
just said that.
Right. I'm agreeing with Hans on this one. It's got to, the question is, ask yourself, would you send your car across town to pick up your child or grandchild or someone, your blind grandmother, to bring them back, and with absolute confidence? Confidence, not that the drive would necessarily be the most comfortable or the most smooth, but that it would definitely not result in an accident today. Not never, but not today. That the accident rate would be at least as good as a human, hopefully better. And I cannot predict how far down the road that is, how many more nines we need. I know that 12.3.2.1 and 12.3.3 are very big steps in that direction, but I don't know if we can if the next, who knows, 12.4 might be it. 12.4 could literally be, we've got everything solved, here you go, it's done. I don't think that's going to be the case, but it is not outside the realm of possibility.
I would say based on, the size of the robotaxi fleet and, the operation that FSD is going to be, I would be absolutely shocked if Tesla does not have their own teleoperation for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
both the banish feature and for robotaxis. Like, I
If it
think
gets
that that
stuck.
is going to be something that it's not if it's like they're gonna be operating so many that there definitely will be edge cases where they do get stuck. And there definitely will be edge cases where, someone sends a vehicle to banish and something happens. And so if they have their own group of employees that are doing that teleoperation intervention on behalf instead of having that need to be the owner of the vehicle, then they can implement a feedback loop to incorporate that all into the training for the next versions that they can then solve those issues and drive them down to zero. You don't get from zero failures, zero faults, um, or from however many they have today to zero in one step. Like, it has to be a process where you reduce them in a continuous way, and I think that they will have some teleoperation that's involved in that.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Okay. So we agree that we're going to look at this list. We think that this list is fairly good. There's enough here that all of these needs to be solved before we consider it to be feature complete. We think that it's going to be feature complete. Some of you, why are you thinking that it needs to be done by 8/8? Hans, you said it 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to question on you on that.
I mean, these things don't have to be done. I'm just saying I think that they very well obviously, the more of those things that it can do, the better the presentation is on August 8th. Elon is definitely driving, like, I guarantee you that there is an expectation on the part of Elon that all these problems are gonna be solved by 8/8. Now, whether they get there, we'll see. Um, and like I said, I think that we are in the part of the progress curve where it's really hard to tell when we're gonna hit that next piece of acceleration that sends the progress completely vertical. And so it could be before or after that August 8th date that we get some of those things, but it doesn't seem like we're very far away from, within definitely the 12-month time frame, um, a level of progress in capability that is beyond what 99% of people are expecting.
What about things like being able to drive in different weather conditions, like snow? What about different terrains, or like one of the things that they brought up in the book, wasn't it, that they were thinking that if you're going to do a robotaxi, what happens when your car goes into a parking garage and you have the gate? Who's going to press the button to get you the ticket to open the gate? And so didn't they even talk about having an arm coming out with a finger pressing the button? Obviously, that's probably not likely, but you know what I mean? Like, that's a complete feature complete for Robotaxi. But what do you guys think about those things I just mentioned as examples of other things that did not appear on this list?
Well, I'd want to address real quick the question of why I expect it to work on 8/8. Like Hans said, the fact that it's so far out means it's not ready today, but
Four
Elon
months?
is. It's yes, 4 months. When was the last time we got a date 4 months out? Sometimes you get the date 2 weeks out, and a week later they push it 2 weeks beyond that. That was the case with the Plaid launch. That was delayed. Mostly, you find out less than a month in advance of an event, no matter how big the event is. And on this one, I would say it's 4 months out. He is pushing them to get it done by then, and it won't be. We've seen job postings for test drivers in different cities. At least that's what it looked like to me, was autonomous vehicle test drivers, which means they are going to be, I think, testing, maybe not on the vehicle, the actual vehicle itself, but on a vehicle with a comparable sensor suite that they can get running right. So that on the day of, it would be magnificent if at that event they said, oh, and by the way, there's a bunch of them outside, go for a test ride, no driver with you. And they just let people pile in, just like they did with drives on the Cybertruck and the Roadster and everything else. except this time there's no driver in there with you. That, I think, is the goal. That is the objective. Will they get there? That is anyone's guess, including Elon's at this point, I believe. So, yeah, that's where I'm at on that. And then I have already forgotten what the question was that you had actually asked. So what was that?
Different conditions like winter,
Oh,
snow.
yeah.
Um,
So extreme snow where there's no lane markings and you kind of can't even tell where the road is, I expect it to struggle mightily for years, just as a human very likely would. But rain conditions, it absolutely has to drive in the rain. I have problems with my fender cameras being obscured, being so it'll. I will lose the ability to change lanes if there's a road mist coming up. That's something that I feel needs to be addressed. I think that's a flaw in the design, but I'm sure that there are ways to overcome that. And then once you get off the freeway and slow back down, it can drive just fine again. It's just during those, 60, 70 mile an hour sprints on the highway when there's all that spray coming up from the big rigs in front of you that it really has a hard time seeing. And one improvement I've seen on 12.3.3, the whole 12 series, is that it no longer screams at me, hey man, I can't see, while also failing to turn on the windshield wipers. I think my windshield wipers have gotten better in the latest builds, but that could just be my perception.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that overall, a lot of transport things shut down when you have major weather events like major rainstorms, major thunderstorms, major snow. And so I would not like those things need to get solved, obviously, but they don't necessarily impede the ability of Tesla to begin operating a robotaxi service. And just saying that this service is right now currently limited to these weather conditions. And that's, something that's more in line with level 4 autonomy than level 5. But, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And then I think that it will be interesting to see, on one of the things that I'm hoping that we find out on August 8th or whatever the date actually ends up being, if it ends up getting pushed, is, what does that hardware 5 sensor suite really look like? I believe that we are going to see some
No.
interesting updates, what that looks like.
Yeah.
It could be new camera placements. It could be heated cameras. There
No.
could be an update on, do we have that radar that they're using on the Model X and the Model S now? Are they going to actually deploy that in a larger way? That'll be something that I know a lot of people don't think that that's going to happen. And Herbert, you can disagree with me, but I think that we will get a somewhat modified sensor suite for hardware 5, and then obviously a much better computer.
Yeah.
I know,
Okay.
Herbert,
Well,
you
so
disagree, but I'm going to side with Hans on this one. I guess this is our week to agree on things, Hans. I think the car, it already stitches the entire world together. I don't think moving the cameras would be as monumental a shift as some people are thinking it would be. And I'll tell you, having the ability to see to the sides on the when pulling out into traffic, having the cameras all the way back on the B pillars is worse than human. That is a solution that I think would be fairly easy to implement. Even adding a 180 field of view bumper camera would give you tremendous cross traffic views. And I think that the neural net is capable of stitching that world back together in seamless ways that give it better vision. And when you were saying that maybe it's limited to certain weather conditions, when I was living in China, we had to go out to Suzhou, a city not too far from Shanghai. And we met at the bus depot in the morning, and I was informed by my translator that the buses aren't running this morning. The highway's closed. The fog is too thick. This is for public safety, because if they didn't close the highways, people would keep driving, and it's not safe. So we took the train. I'm not saying we should close our roads for weather, but I am saying that it is not unreasonable for a system that is
No,
designed
it's-
for safety to implement safety limitations like that.
Yeah. No, so the Robotaxi is going to probably have hardware 5, all that. You're right. Not arguing with that. The idea is that on 8.8, they're not going to release a new Robotaxi that's going to have hardware 5, different camera placements, when all of the training has been on hardware 3. They haven't even done it on hardware 4 yet.
Oh,
So
yeah, it
just
wouldn't
not,
be working
yeah.
necessarily on that day,
Okay.
but they'll unveil, what the
Sure.
hardware 5 sensor suite's gonna look like. Because part of this, you know, this is a view that I haven't heard anyone else share with me yet, but I think that part of 8.8 is we're gonna sell, like, this is a sales pitch to the rest of the auto industry on, this is the solution to self-driving, and it's available for purchase and license from Tesla moving
Mhm.
forward, and we're convincing you that this is gonna work. And so, in my mind, they have to actually talk about what the robot, not the, not hardware 3, not hardware 4 platform, what does that look like, but what does the Robotaxi hardware and sensor suite and software stack look like? And they have to talk about that in a pretty detailed way. And like I said, I would expect it to include accommodations that help other people who are not as insightful or intelligent as Elon to be comfortable with, yes, this is the system that we want to license. And so it needs to have a little bit more backup, a little bit more overlap between sensors. And as long as they can get high quality data from the new radar that they have, that's much higher resolution, and it's not actually causing interference with the camera data, then I think that that is a great piece of technology and a sensor to add to everything that really does give the car better capabilities that are not just as good as a human, but better than a human. Visibility in fog, visibility in, snow and rain and those types of things, that is superior to what we have. And that's why I think that they will talk about those things, they will show those things. But to your point, Herbert, like, it can't be working yet. They need to install that hardware setup on a lot of vehicles and get them out on the road and get them, get the data. They need hardware 5 data to really train hardware 5 neural nets. But one of the things that we know that Elon talked about is, like, currently we're not even utilizing hardware 4 on the computer, or in the vehicles to their full extent. That hardware 4 is emulating hardware 3. Now there's a couple of different possibilities here. They could be emulating the hardware 3 sensors but running hardware 4 computers full out as hardware 4 computers. They could be utilizing the hardware 4 sensors and just emulating the hardware 3 computer because they haven't optimized the software yet to run on the hardware 4 computer. Or it could be both. It could be that they're emulating a hardware 3 computer on a hardware 4 computer, and they're emulating the hardware 3 cameras on the hardware 4 cameras. We're not exactly sure, what that means, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's both at this point. And all of that to say that they can do the exact same thing. They can launch this hardware 5 vehicle. They can emulate hardware 3 in whatever way necessary, whether it's hardware
Sure.
3 computers or
Gotcha.
cameras, but it can be delivered to customers and work as well as a
Mhm.
hardware 3 vehicle works today. And then the more of them that they get out there, the more they are collecting the necessary data, the more they are optimizing the hardware to run down on that new hardware 5 computer. And eventually, what it means is they can unlock, they can turn on all sorts of new capability that's unlocked by that specialized hardware that's never been possible in the past. And we can get the benefit of, we still have functionality that was derived on this previous version of hardware and computers, from a sensor and computer standpoint.
There's no doubt. Hardware 5, hardware 6, hardware 7. It's all coming for sure. We're talking about the steps before August 8th. Okay.
Well,
Let's now
I
talk
wanted
about.
to I wanted to just wrap this up by saying in the comments what I'd like to see from everybody is, do you think that the 8.8 event is a sales pitch to other manufacturers to start getting your licensing agreements underway, because I think that's a very
That's a
sound
good one.
theory, but I'd like to hear feedback from the community.
Okay. So 88, I asked this question to a space yesterday, and of course, got all sorts of different answers, right? So some people think that on August 8th, almost all of us think that they're going to be unveiling the Robotaxi vehicle. They'll show you what it looks like. There's debate by some people thinking that the Robotaxi, they're not going to show you the compact car. But some people believe that they're going to be the same car, just that it doesn't have a steering wheel, doesn't have a brakes, but it's going to be very much similar. I completely disagree. I think it's going to be a completely brand new experience. It's going to be first principle on autonomous driving. I think the inside will be very different than the eventual compact car. They're not going to show you the compact car. Some people believe that this might be an autonomous platform where they're going to show you a second vehicle too, a 2-passenger and a 4-passenger, and maybe even a van. Some people thought that they're going to show you the actual factory. They're going to show you the unboxed model. Some people think that you're going to actually have the app. They're going to show you the app, and they're going to have to demo an actual pickup and a drive. And then some even go as far as thinking that they're going to launch and they're going to announce that on this particular date in the future, in these particular cities, we're going to already start Robotaxi. There could be a lot of different variations on this. I'd be curious to see what you guys think. Who wants to start with that one first?
I'll put Brian in the hot seat on this.
I am happy to take that hot seat. So we will not be seeing Unboxed in action on the 8th of August. The building is nowhere close to ready. Unless they were going to hold this event at some other location where they've secretly been building out a tremendous amount of space, which I think is very unlikely. Announcing a launch date, I don't see it happening because they need the vehicle and the vehicle doesn't exist. And they want to launch it as soon as they can. The only way they could announce a date and actually keep it is if they overshot it by too much. So I don't think they might give you a vague date like, oh, by the end of whatever quarter or whatever year. And in terms of the form factor, I had a conversation with my kids about this because my kids are fairly smart cookies. And one of the questions I asked is what would be the seating configuration? And what they came up with was facing each other so that you've got the most flexible space inside and the easiest in and out through just a single large door. And then also by having basically 2 bench seats, you get comfortable seating for 4 or tight seating for 6. And there are very few applications where you need more than 6 people. And if you do, you're in the unusual edge case aspect of it. So I think a little box with inward center facing seating might be the solution. I don't think it'd be a challenge in terms of safety.
It can be completely opposite of that. It could be that we're back to back so that each person has an entire wall that they can look at for entertainment and productivity themselves. Maybe the answer is going to be swivel seats, where you can just decide how you want to do it. Completely configurable.
So I think the swivel seats would take up too much space, and I think sitting back to back would be too uncomfortable for people riding together, and that it would lead to people talking over their shoulders. And the nice thing about face-to-face is if you've got your own car seat, you just hop in and buckle it. It couldn't be easier. So that would make flexibility for families who, in my view, are going to be the most hesitant to give up car ownership, because when you've got kids, all of a sudden taxis and Ubers become a real hassle. You're annoying the driver with the time it takes to deal with the car seats. And having
Brian,
the new
85% of all Uber drives is a single passenger.
I know.
And then the other 10% is 2 people.
Right. But that doesn't mean we should necessarily ignore them. And having a vehicle that's flexible enough to do all these things is that much better. A 4-seater wouldn't be that much bigger than a 2-seater, really, especially if you already need a crumple zone on each end, which is where your luggage would go should you need it. I just don't think it needs to get that much smaller.
Everybody thought that it was going to be a 2-seater, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be a 4-seater because Uber today, almost every single Uber is a 4-seater. And then they have this ability to share a ride with strangers and reduce your costs even further. and this is truly a people mover, you might want to have that opportunity to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that
Is there going to be an app? Is there going to be an actual demo of a pickup driver? Will they actually have the program designed and launched?
I'll let Hans be on this hot seat.
Yeah, I would say, well, I'll answer those questions and then we'll go back a little bit. I think that we will have demo drives. I don't know about the app, but definitely I think they will tease, this is what the service is going to look like. As far as configurations go, to move back just a second, there is a reason that all the seats are forward facing today, and that is crash safety. And I don't see those crash safety things changing in the near term. Like in London, if you've ever taken a cab there, they do have those the London classic London taxi. You do have seating that's kind of around, or limousines. You'll see that style as well. So it is an option, but it's definitely not something that is standard, and it's more for lower speed things. And so if you're going to be operating something in an urban environment and you're not going out on the highways, I think you do open up the possibility for those either, facing away from each other, facing towards each other, like that becomes more possible in that scenario. But if you're taking anything on the highway at highway speeds, I don't think we're going to see anything that is different than the current everyone faces forward model. Because yeah, crash safety at high speeds and airbags and all that stuff, it's really designed to work to protect human occupants, um, the way that it is. And yeah, having all those forces directed in that way is helpful. So yeah, we'll have to see. I do expect a platform that we will have multiple variations, multiple sizes, and that the unbox process to me seems like it is specifically geared towards being much more flexible and offering many more configurations of vehicle with the lowest amount of complexity in the factory and the supply chain possible. So having lots and lots of commonality between different vehicles of, different shapes, different sizes, and different purposes.
Well, what about the idea that France has been saying for years that this is going to be its greatest design, that is autonomous first principles from autonomy first, and yet you guys go, I'm just going to remove the steering wheel and pedal. I think it should all be exactly like exactly like the cars out there, and everybody's going to be forward facing, or it's
Well,
going to be like a
he's
bus. What
already
to you?
said that the Model 3, one of his conversations that he had with Ryan McCaffrey on Ride the Lightning, he was already talking about how his design philosophy for the Model 3 very much had some of those same principles and thought processes for autonomous driving in them. And that's, one of the reasons for the minimalistic design, the large screens, especially on like the Model 3, that you don't even have that instrument cluster that's behind the steering wheel like you do in the S and the X. The reason that that's not there in the 3 is specifically because eventually, that's not even going to be something that's necessary when you don't need to drive the car. So he's been thinking about those things, and they do, those same concepts already are in place in the Model 3 and the Model Y, at an even higher level than they were for the S and the X. But yes, there will be some new things that are different. But I think it's going to be hard to say what parts are going to be the same and what parts are going to be different until we see the designs actually revealed. I mean, I just know personally I've had a very terrible track record of predicting what there are all these things that I can think of that they'll do that'll be crazy, like, the single casting for the entire vehicle. That was one that I thought, "Oh, for sure, at shareholder day, we're gonna be talking about the next leap in gigacasting technology, and they're gonna try and go for, a single or even a double, a two stamp or a two casting process that is seemed in a way that they can basically make assembly really easily, but actually removes a lot of the stampings that they were using in between the front and rear. But they didn't go that direction at all because they wanted to split up the sub-assemblies of the car, and that was something that no one that I talked to beforehand, none of the smart people, none of the industry experts, none of us saw that coming. And I think that it's really going to be probably somewhat similar. Like, we can wrap our head around some of the challenges that they're going to try and face, but then, I mean, Tesla, they just come up with such ingenious engineering solutions to these problems that,
Mhm.
if we could predict it, then someone else could do it. And I don't think that that's going to
That's
happen.
why I'm saying that, okay, if I'm in an RV and I'm being driven by, by the RV, what do we all do? We're sitting on a table, we're all playing cards with each other, we're all facing each other, we can face outwards. That's what this is. This is a new design. Anyway, so we're going to see we're going to see the vehicle. That's for sure. We agree to. I think we just need to decide, do you think that you're going to have an experience? And I think that the answer is, I think, yes, right? You cannot go and say, here's the vehicle, but not show that you can do Robotaxi, because that is what we're able to do with version 12.3 anyways already, where it can pick you up, it can drive you around. So that will be part of the show. They have already been working on an app. He's been talking about this app for, for years. So they've been working on the app already, right? He said there was an 8-minute clip where he was actually describing Robotaxi a long time ago, and he said that it will be the same Tesla app that you have now, but now you're going to have this ability to ride share, and you just click on that tab, and you can call and retrieve. So that's going to happen. And then, is there going to be an actual program? Will they actually announce and say, these cities, we're going to start the program at this date?
So I will say, I think all of those are the expectation, not just from us, but from them. But how many of them they'll actually be able to get done on time is unknown and unknowable. I'm going to take Herbert's side on this, Hans. So sorry to disagree. I think it is going to be, the safety issue is not an issue. It's a solved issue. If you're in a high-speed collision, you would rather be flat against the back than facing forward and have to be restrained by airbags. Someone in the comments pointed out that Canoe had already done the crash testing on those other seating configurations. And someone had also said, yes, but they won't do, inward-facing seating like that because they want to keep parts in common. 2 benches is parts in common. It could be literally 2 Model 3 back seats just facing each other, or Model Y, whatever it would be, and then just use that. So I think all of that is possible. A question I did want to ask, because I know we talked about this in the green room, is does changing the word beta to supervised mean that they can count anybody who buys it today? They're not buying FSD, and they're not buying FSD beta, they're buying supervised FSD. If what you purchase is supervised FSD, do they get to claim that revenue today? And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I don't think it's a naming that's going to do it. It's whether or not the features are substantially there. And if the features are substantially there, then you're offering it, then you can recognize that revenue. Who cares what you call it?
Yeah, I do think that, for those people who have, if we're talking about recognizing deferred revenue, not necessarily recognizing forward, that for those people that bought it in Summon was part of what they paid for in the feature set, that, we're not going to be able to recognize that yet. And, I would be curious to see what are the features that are listed today if you're purchasing FSD supervised. Yeah, what's the feature set that you are signing up to have delivered, and then that should, I think, give us a little bit more information on what they can and cannot recognize. But I do think it is interesting that, we have basically, I think we have crossed the threshold in Elon's mind of when he said that we're going to version 12 is going to be out of beta, that I think that we are there today.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate this. Please join us. The three of us each have our own YouTube channel: Hansi Nelson, Future Aza, and of course Brighter. Thank you guys very much. We do this every Wednesday. Do another great show next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.